A Comanche war chief tracked a beast that would leave him for dead. What he didn't know was that his salvation would come from the most unlikely source. Before we dive into the story, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss tomorrow's incredible stories. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let's continue with the story. The storm came without warning, just like the beast they hunted. Dakota Redsky pressed his hand against the limestone cliff, feeling the mountain tremble beneath sheets of rain. His warriors moved like shadows through the canyon, tracking prints larger than any mountain cat should leave. The settlers called it El Tigre. His people had other names for it, names spoken only in whispers. "The tracks lead deeper into Devil's Throat," his lieutenant Kohana called out, water streaming down his painted face. The narrow canyon ahead twisted like a serpent, its walls scarred by ancient floods. Dakota's instincts screamed danger, but they'd tracked this killer for 3 days. It had taken 7 lives already. 4 settlers, 3 Comanche children. Thunder cracked overhead as they entered the passage. The rain suddenly stopped reaching them, blocked by overhanging rock. In that sudden silence, Dakota heard breathing that wasn't human. His hand moved to his lance, but the attack came from above. 800 pounds of muscle and fury dropped onto his rear guard. Screams echoed off stone as claws found flesh. Dakota spun, launching his spear, but the creature moved like liquid shadow. It left Brave Elk's throat open to the spine, then pivoted toward running Fox. The young warrior's eyes went wide with terror before massive jaws crushed his skull. The monster stood taller than any cougar Dakota had ever seen, its scarred hide telling stories of countless battles won. "Run!" Dakota roared to his remaining men. "Get to high ground!" But as they fled, he stood his ground. Someone had to buy them time. The beast's yellow eyes locked onto his, intelligent and calculating. This was no ordinary animal. It circled him slowly, muscles rippling beneath wet fur. Dakota drew his knife, knowing it wasn't enough. The cat feinted left, then struck from the right. Pain exploded across Dakota's chest as claws raked through leather and flesh. He slashed blindly, his blade finding the creature's shoulder, drawing black blood. The beast roared, a sound that shook stones loose from above. Then its full weight crashed into him, driving him backward over the ravine's edge. They fell together, predator and prey locked in deadly embrace, tumbling into darkness where the storm's fury couldn't reach. Dawn painted Broken Jaw Creek in shades of rust and gold. 8-year-old Mercy Hollowell moved through the underbrush like a ghost, checking snares she'd set the night before. 2 years of silence had sharpened her other senses. She heard the rabbits struggle before she saw it, quick and clean, work with her knife ending its pain. Food for 3 days if she rationed carefully. The abandoned prospector's cabin she called home sat hidden behind a wall of mesquite and fallen rocks. No one came here anymore. The gold was gone, leaving only shadows and forgotten dreams. Perfect for a girl who needed to disappear. She'd learned that being invisible meant staying alive. The outlaws who'd shot her parents taught her that lesson well. Her bare feet found familiar stones as she descended toward the ravine where rainwater collected. But something was different today. The vultures circled lower than usual, their wings catching morning thermals, not circling, waiting. Mercy knew death's patterns intimately. This was fresh. She almost turned back. Almost. But winter was coming, and if there was a deer carcass down there, she could smoke the meat, use the hide. Survival didn't allow for squeamishness. The path down was treacherous, carved by flash floods that turned peaceful creeks into raging demons. She'd seen it happen once, watched a wagon get swept away like a child's toy. The smell hit her first. Blood and something wild. Then she saw the mountain cat, its massive body twisted at an impossible angle against the rocks. A knife still protruded from its shoulder. Her eyes traced the blood trail to a second form, partially hidden beneath an overhang. A man. Indian, by his dress, Comanche warrior markings visible through torn leather. She should run. Everyone knew Comanches were dangerous, but as she crept closer, she saw his chest rise. Barely. The movement so slight she might have imagined it. His face was turned away, dark hair matted with blood. Deep gashes crossed his torso where the cat's claws had found their mark. He was dying, would be dead by nightfall without help. Mercy stood frozen. She'd watched her mother tend wounded folks before, knew which plants stopped bleeding, which bark brought down fever. The medicine woman in town, old Rosa, gathered herbs. Full moon. Mercy had followed her, memorizing everything. Knowledge stolen like everything else she needed to survive. The warrior's hand twitched. His lips moved, forming words in a language she didn't recognize. No, that was wrong. She did recognize some words. From the trading post, where she hid in the rafters, listening to trappers and natives trade more than goods. He was calling for someone, warning them. She made her choice. Death had taken enough from this world. Today, she would take something back. The travois nearly killed them both twice. Mercy had built it from old mining cartwheels and rope she'd found in the collapsed shaft, but dragging 200 pounds of unconscious warrior up a rocky slope tested every ounce of her 8-year-old strength. She'd rigged pulleys to dead trees, using techniques she'd watched prospectors employ. When muscle failed, cleverness had to suffice. Inside her hidden cabin, she worked with desperate efficiency. The deepest wound ran from his collarbone to his ribs, exposing white bone beneath. She'd seen Rosa treat similar injuries, pressing whiskey-soaked cloth deep into the flesh while the patient screamed. This man couldn't scream. His silence felt heavier than any sound. Pine resin mixed with bear fat created a seal against infection. She'd rendered the fat herself last spring, stored in clay jars beneath the floorboards. The willow bark tea required forcing his jaw open, trickling liquid down his throat, drop by careful drop. Too fast, and he'd choke. Too slow, and the fever would take him. His words came in waves as delirium gripped him. Comanche phrases mixed with broken English, painting pictures she didn't want to see. "Neshoba arranges everything," he muttered, sweat beading his forehead despite the cool air. "My brother's blade sharper than trust, broken like brittle wood." Mercy understood more than she should. Hours spent hidden at the trading post had taught her fragments of many tongues. Languages were puzzles, and she'd always loved puzzles. His brother had betrayed him, set him up to die. The hunting party, the canyon, even the storm, all planned. She changed his bandages as the sun tracked across the floor. Each movement calculated, learned from watching Rosa through windows, memorizing the old woman's hands as they worked their healing magic. The medicine woman never knew she had a silent student copying her every gesture in the shadows. Night brought new dangers. His fever spiked, body burning like forge iron. She dragged blankets from her parents' trunk, the ones that still smelled faintly of her mother's lavender soap. The warrior thrashed, nearly tearing open his wounds again. She held him down with her small weight, humming a lullaby her father used to sing. The melody seemed to calm him. "The gold," he gasped suddenly in English, eyes flying open, but seeing nothing. "Hidden where eagles nest. Neshoba knows. Army shipment. They never found." His hand grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Must stop. The white killers. They come with new moon." Then consciousness fled again, leaving Mercy with knowledge that burned worse than any fever. She'd heard her parents talk about missing army gold before they died. The night before, outlaws came calling. The same outlaws this warrior's brother now conspired with. Connections formed in her mind, a web of betrayal spanning both worlds. The fever broke on the third night, leaving Dakota weak but lucid. Mercy watched from her corner as his eyes searched the cabin, taking in the strange domesticity of his survival. Pickled vegetables in jars, her mother's china plates, a child's drawings charcoaled onto wooden planks. His gaze finally found her, and she saw the questions forming. She'd prepared for this moment, arranging her father's journal where he could reach it. The pages she'd marked told a specific story. Army gold stolen 3 years back, $20,000 vanished between Fort Griffin and Austin. Her parents had been translators for the Army, caught between two worlds just like she was now. They'd known something. It got them killed. Dakota's hands shook as he read, connecting truths he'd only suspected. His tribe had been blamed for the theft, hunted relentlessly until they'd agreed to a treaty. But they'd never taken that gold. Someone else had. Someone who needed a war between natives and settlers to cover their tracks. "Neshoba meets them at Bone Ridge," he whispered, his voice raw from days of silence. "New moon brings darkness for evil work." He tried to sit up, winced, fell back. "Child, you must." He stopped, realizing she couldn't answer. But Mercy was already moving. She pulled out a hidden leather satchel, spreading its contents across the floor. Paper scraps covered in her observations. Trading post conversations transcribed in her invented shorthand. Maps showing outlaw movement patterns she'd tracked for 2 years. The face of every man who'd ridden with Silas Crenshaw the night her parents died, drawn from memory. One drawing made Dakota's breath catch. A man with a tiger tattooed across his neck. "You know Tiger Crenshaw," he said. Not a question. She nodded, then drew more. Quick sketches showing Crenshaw meeting with a younger Comanche warrior at Bone Ridge. The warrior wearing ceremonial paint that marked him as Neshoba, though she hadn't known his name until now. They'd met 3 times this past month. She'd watched from her hiding spots, collecting secrets like others collected stones. "The massacre," Dakota breathed, understanding flooding his features. "Rattlesnake Bend's Harvest Festival. Every farmer for miles comes to town. Defense is empty. Neshoba provides warriors seeking glory. Crenshaw's gang does the killing, and when the smoke clears..." Mercy finished his thought with a final drawing. Soldiers arriving, retribution against the Comanche, war profiteers selling weapons to both sides, the hidden gold surfacing in pieces, cleaned through blood and chaos. She showed him one last paper, a calendar marking the festival. 4 days away. 4 days to stop 2 armies of killers from destroying everything. Dakota struggled upright despite the pain, warrior's duty overcoming body's protest. But his legs buckled immediately. He wasn't ready. Might never be ready in time. Mercy caught his arm, steadying him. Then did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She opened her mouth, preparing to break her silence. Mercy's voice wouldn't come. She opened her mouth, But 2 years of silence had built walls that refused to crumble. Instead, tears of frustration rolled down her cheeks. Dakota watched this child who'd saved his life struggle against her own prison, and something in his warrior's heart shifted. "Words are just one language," he said softly, lifting his hands. "My people have another way." His fingers moved in deliberate patterns, signing concepts rather than sounds. Sun, water, danger, friend. Simple at first, then building in complexity. Mercy's eyes widened with recognition. She'd seen deaf miners use similar gestures, though these were different. Older, more elegant. She copied his movements instantly, her small hands surprisingly precise. Then she grabbed her charcoal, adding her own layer to the conversation. Not just drawings now, but symbols she'd invented. A circle with a slash meant enemy. A spiral indicated time passing. Dots showed how many people. Together, they built a bridge between silence and understanding. Days blended into each other as they refined their communication. Dakota taught her to read the world like his people did, how wind patterns predicted weather, which birds warned of approaching strangers, the way horses telegraphed their riders' intentions. In return, Mercy showed him her hidden network of supply caches throughout the hills, emergency routes she'd mapped, the schedule of every patrol, every supply wagon, every creature of habit in Rattlesnake Bend. "You see everything," Dakota marveled as she sketched the town's defenses from memory. Every window, every blind spot, every place a child could hide and listen. Like a spirit walking unseen. She drew herself next to an eagle, then pointed at him and drew a wolf. He understood. They were both predators who'd learned to survive alone. But wolves were meant to run in packs. Eagles might soar solo, but they still needed safe places to nest. During meals of rabbit stew and foraged greens, Dakota shared stories his grandmother had told him. How coyotes stole fire for the people, why the buffalo disappeared into the earth. Stories that held lessons about trust, betrayal, and redemption. Mercy absorbed each tale, understanding that myths carried truths heavier than facts. One evening, as she changed his bandages with practiced efficiency, he noticed scars on her small arms. Defensive wounds. She'd fought back the night her parents died. This child had faced grown killers and survived through cunning and will. He spoke to her in Comanche, knowing she understood more than she revealed. "Little eagle, you saved a warrior's body, but you also saved his spirit. I was becoming like my brother, suspicious, cold, ready to choose vengeance over wisdom." He touched her hand gently. "You remind me why we fight, not for glory or gold, for the young ones who deserve better than blood-soaked earth." She finally smiled, real and unguarded, then showed him something she'd hidden, a sheriff's star, bent and tarnished, her father's. Rattlesnake Bend squatted under a sun that turned dust to gold and tempers to gunpowder. Mercy slipped through back alleys she'd mapped in darkness, her bare feet silent on boards that would creak under adult weight. Doc Brennan's office stood 3 buildings from the saloon, close enough that screams from his surgery mixed with piano music on Saturday nights. She needed carbolic acid for Dakota's wounds and laudanum for his pain. The doc kept them locked in a cabinet, but locks meant nothing when you could climb through ceiling gaps where buildings joined. The attic spaces connected half the town, highways for rats and desperate children. Dust motes danced as she lowered herself through loose boards into the storage room. Bottles gleamed like liquid jewels. She selected carefully, taking just enough to avoid notice, replacing volume with colored water she'd brought. The theft would go undetected for weeks. Voices froze her mid-motion, not from the office, but from the room beneath, where Doc Brennan sometimes met patients requiring discretion. She recognized one voice immediately. Neshoba, speaking English with barely an accent, though he pretended not to understand it when convenient. "The sickness will spread as planned," Doc Brennan was saying. "Contaminated blankets distributed to 3 villages. By festival time, they'll be too weak to interfere." "And my brother's loyal warriors?" Neshoba asked. "Dead men tell no tales about who really took that army gold." Mercy's blood turned to ice. A third voice joined them, gravelly and harsh. Tiger Crenshaw himself. "Payment's ready. 20 rifles hidden at Skeleton Point. Your painted devils better earn them." "My warriors will play their part," Neshoba replied. "Attack from the east, while your men come from the west. The town burns, witnesses die, and we blame it on my brother's warmongering. 2 problems solved." "Speaking of your brother, my boys confirmed he's dead. That cat tore him apart good." "Show me proof." "Bottom of Devil's Throat Ravine. Vultures probably picked him clean by now, but his war lance is still there if you want a trophy." Neshoba grunted satisfaction. "Then nothing stops us. 3 nights from now, Rattlesnake Bend becomes a graveyard." Mercy heard chairs scraping, boots moving toward the door. She scrambled up through the ceiling, her heart hammering. But as she reached the roof, her foot slipped. A tile cracked, sliding off to shatter in the alley below. Shouts erupted. She ran across rooftops, leaping gaps that would terrify grown men, using routes she'd practiced in darkness. They couldn't catch her. But now they knew someone had heard. The timeline would change. She had to warn Dakota, had to figure out how one wounded warrior and one silent girl could stop 3 forces of evil from converging. The sheriff's star in her pocket pressed against her ribs, a reminder that sometimes the law came in unexpected forms. Mercy burst through the cabin door like a storm wind, her chest heaving from the 5-mile run. Dakota sat upright, his healing body responding to her panic before his mind caught up. She grabbed charcoal, drawing frantically, but there was too much, too many details, too little time. Her hand shook with frustration. He caught her wrists gently. "Breathe, little eagle. Warriors don't panic. They think." She stared at him, throat working, lips trembling. Then, like a dam breaking after years of pressure, the word emerged. "Poison." Her voice was rough, unused, barely above a whisper. But it was there. "They're poisoning your people." Dakota went rigid. She continued, each word fighting its way free. "Blankets. 3 villages. Doc Brennan." The sentences came in fragments, but he understood. His face darkened with rage. Then something worse. Defeat. "I can't reach them in time. Not like this." He tried to stand, managed 3 steps before his knees buckled. "My people will die because I was fool enough to trust family." "No." The word came stronger now. "We stop them. Together." She led him outside, pointing to her parents' graves beneath the oak tree. Speaking became easier with each word, like rusty gears finding their rhythm. "Mom was Lakota. Daddy was Irish. They died because they stood between 2 worlds, tried to make peace." She turned to face him fully. "I watched them die. Stayed quiet so the killers wouldn't find me hiding. Been quiet ever since. But silence won't save anyone now." Dakota studied this remarkable child who kept surprising him. "You know my friend Kohana. Rides with 3 warriors, loyal ones." She nodded, already sketching. "Camps at Singing River. I've seen their smoke signals. You could reach them by dawn. But it's dangerous." "Everything's dangerous," she interrupted, Finding her voice carried her mother's determination and her father's courage. But I know paths nobody else does, mining tunnels that go under the canyon, deer trails invisible unless you're my size. She showed him her plan through pictures and halting words. Warn Kohana. Have him intercept the poisoned blankets. Rally the loyal warriors. Meanwhile, she'd return to town, to specific people. The baker who'd left bread out accidentally when she was starving. The seamstress who'd pretended not to see her sleeping in the church. The blacksmith whose son the outlaws had killed. People with reasons to listen, reasons to fight. The festival's in 2 days, Dakota said. Even if Kohana believes you, he will. She pulled out a leather cord from around Dakota's neck, the one bearing his chief's medallion. This proves you live. Changes everything. For the first time since the attack, Dakota felt hope. Your parents would be proud, speaking truth after so much silence. They spoke truth, Mercy replied, her voice growing steadier. Got them killed. But staying quiet kills more people. I understand that now. She packed supplies with practiced efficiency. You taught me something. Eagles might hunt alone, but they shriek warnings when danger comes. That's my job now. To scream so loud everyone has to listen. Kohana's swift arrow nearly put an arrow through Mercy's heart when she emerged from the mining tunnel at dawn. Only Dakota's medallion, glinting in first light, stayed his hand. She spoke quickly, her newly freed voice carrying urgent truth. The warrior's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally, cold determination. Neshoba claimed Dakota died dishonorably, fleeing from battle, Kohana spat. We knew it felt wrong. A coward's story about a brave man. He whistled sharp and low. 3 warriors materialized from the rocks. Where are these poisoned blankets? Mercy drew the route in the dirt. Supply wagon comes today. Noon. Miller's Crossing. We'll handle it. Kohana's eyes were flint hard. Tell my chief we ride with him. 20 warriors still honor the old ways. She ran back through darkness, reaching Dakota as the sun climbed high. He was standing now, moving carefully but steadily. She'd been gone 8 hours. In that time, he'd prepared. War paint marked his face. His father's ceremonial knife hung at his belt. Kohana sends his best fighters, she reported. The poisoned blankets will never reach your people. And the town. That's next. She pulled out a list. 14 names. People who might listen. They moved under cover of dusk. Mercy led him through hidden paths into Rattlesnake Ben's underbelly. Their first stop was the bakery. Wilhelm Strudel, a German immigrant whose son rode with the Texas Rangers, listened to their story while kneading tomorrow's bread. His massive hands stilled as Mercy described what she'd overheard. Crenshaw killed my brother last winter, Wilhelm said quietly. Said it was Indians, but Carl wasn't killed with arrows. I saw the bullet holes. He looked at Dakota. You're asking me to trust a Comanche. I'm asking you to trust her, Dakota replied, nodding at Mercy. This child sees truth where adults see only hate. They moved through town like whispers, gathering allies. The seamstress whose husband Crenshaw had cheated at cards. The stable master who'd lost horses to mysterious raids. The minister who'd noticed too many orphans appearing after Crenshaw's gang passed through. Each person they trusted led them to another. A network of the wronged, finally given a reason to fight back. In the abandoned mine shaft outside town, their unlikely alliance gathered. 30 townspeople. 20 Comanche warriors, all brought together by a child's courage and a chief's honor. Crenshaw expects to attack defenseless families, Dakota addressed them. Instead, he'll find warriors, both native and settler, fighting as one. The blacksmith raised his hammer. My forge has been making more than horseshoes. 40 rifles, hidden and ready. The mine has dynamite, another man added, for removing obstacles. Mercy spread out her maps. Every approach route, every hiding spot, every weakness in Crenshaw's plan. Tomorrow, during the harvest festival, evil would come calling. But this time, innocence wouldn't stand alone. The harvest festival bloomed with lanterns and laughter, fiddle music spinning through streets packed with families. Children chased each other between vendor stalls while their parents danced. Everything appeared normal, exactly as planned. Mercy stood on the church roof, her father's bent star pinned to her dress, watching 3 armies converge on innocence. From the east, Neshoba led 15 warriors painted for war. From the west, Tiger Crenshaw's gang approached through the canyon, 40 strong. Neither force knew about the third army, the one waiting inside the celebration itself. Dakota stood in the town square's center, seemingly alone and still wounded. The perfect bait. Neshoba saw him first, his face twisting with shock, then fury. His brother lived. The careful narrative of heroic death crumbled. He raised his war cry, charging into the square. His warriors followed, expecting easy slaughter. Instead, they met Wilhelm's rifles. The townspeople didn't fire to kill, only to corral. These weren't all enemies, just young men following a corrupted leader. Kohana's loyal warriors emerged from buildings, blocking escape routes. Comanche faced Comanche, truth against lies. "Brother," Dakota called out, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Your allies come from the west. Should we tell these warriors who you really serve?" Right on time, Crenshaw's gang thundered down Main Street, guns blazing. But the families had vanished into the mine tunnels Mercy had shown them. The outlaws found themselves shooting at shadows and strategic mirrors the blacksmith had placed. Confusion spread through their ranks. Then the dynamite spoke. Not to kill, but to trap. Carefully placed charges dropped building facades, blocking retreat routes. The outlaws were cattle in a pen, surrounded by armed townsfolk who'd waited years for justice. Crenshaw himself rode straight for Dakota, understanding betrayal when he saw it. But Mercy moved faster. She'd positioned herself perfectly, dropping from the church roof onto his horse. Her small knife found the saddle straps. Crenshaw tumbled hard, his gun flying. Before he could rise, she stood over him, her father's pistol steady in her child's hands. "You killed my parents," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the sudden silence. "Sheriff Tom Hollowell and his wife Mary, 2 years ago. You shot them for knowing about the Army gold. You can't prove nothing, girl." "I can." Doc Brennan stumbled forward, Kohana's blade at his back. "I kept records. Everything. Every crime paid for with stolen gold. Insurance, you might say." The fighting stopped. Neshoba stood isolated, his corrupted warriors laying down arms rather than fight their own people. He looked at Dakota with bitter hatred. "You always were too noble. It makes you weak." "No," Dakota replied. "It makes me trustworthy. That's why a child saved me while your allies abandon you." The Texas Rangers arrived at sunset, summoned by Wilhelm's son. They found a town that had delivered its own justice. Crenshaw and his gang in chains. Neshoba stripped of honor, facing tribal judgment. The stolen gold recovered from Doc Brennan's hidden safe. The trial circle formed at dawn, Comanche justice moving swifter than any courthouse. Neshoba stood in the center, his war paint washed away, leaving only a man who'd chosen greed over kinship. The elders spoke in turns, each word weighted with disappointment rather than anger. "You brought sickness to our people," the eldest said. "Sold your brother's life for white man's gold. What punishment fits such betrayal?" Dakota stepped forward. "I claim the right of the wronged." Murmurs rippled through the gathering. "But I don't seek his death. Death teaches nothing." He looked at his brother. "You'll live, but you'll live alone. No tribe, no family, no name. Wander the earth knowing you traded everything for nothing." Neshoba's face crumbled. For a Comanche, exile was worse than execution. To have no people was to have no soul. The warriors turned their backs on him one by one. He walked into the desert alone, his shadow the only companion he'd earned. Back in Rattlesnake Bend, the courtroom overflowed. Tiger Crenshaw faced the circuit judge, but the star witness was 8 years old. Mercy spoke clearly, her voice no longer hiding. She'd kept evidence, her father's journal, maps of outlaw camps. Most damning, a letter in Crenshaw's own hand ordering the sheriff's murder. 20 years hard labor, the judge declared. Crenshaw cursed and spat, but the townspeople just watched silently. Justice had taken 2 years, but it had arrived. After the verdicts, Dakota found Mercy at her parents' graves. She was planting wildflowers, the kind her mother had loved. He knelt beside her, placing his own offering. An eagle feather for the sheriff, a piece of turquoise for his wife. "Your parents raised a warrior," he said softly. "But warriors need tribes." She looked up at him, understanding filling her eyes. The adoption ceremony happened at sunset, binding in both worlds. Kohana stood as witness, while Wilhelm represented the town. Dakota painted symbols on Mercy's face: protection, courage, belonging. She painted matching ones on his: trust, hope, family. "You are blood of my blood," Dakota spoke in Comanche, then English. "Daughter of my heart. Your enemies are my enemies. Your joy is my joy." Judge Morrison made it legal in American law. "Let the record show that Mercy Hollowell, orphan, is now Mercy Redsky, daughter of Chief Dakota Redsky." The townspeople had built something unprecedented, a school where native and settler children would learn together. Mercy would teach there, using her signs and drawings to bridge languages. The building stood where the old gallows had been. They'd chosen education over execution. Months later, Mercy watched children playing in the courtyard: Apache, Comanche, Mexican, Irish, German, all learning each other's words, sharing each other's games. Dakota rode in from patrol, his strength fully returned. He dismounted and swept her into his arms. "My little eagle still saving the world?" "Every day," she laughed, her voice bright as spring water. "One word at a time. Thank you for watching this incredible story of courage and redemption. If this tale touched your heart, please click that like button and subscribe to our channel. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another amazing story of human triumph against impossible odds. Until then, remember that sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths.